Welcome to the Excel Purpose Show with Comstor. Today we have an amazing guest. I feel absolutely privileged to kick off the first episode of the Excel Purpose Show with Rayson Choo, aka the celebrity whisperer, helping young professional who lives a hectic and stressful life to achieve peace and happiness. Motivational speaker, award-winning nurse, someone with such a massive big heart and advocate of mental health. Due to having to care for his own mother, he has gone through a series of setbacks, like dealing with his parents' divorce and constant bullying at the age of 7. He has embraced these challenges to become an entrepreneur, host of podcast Raygacy, and author of the Younger Self Letters. Welcome, Rayson. Thank you for being here today.
Wow. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your kind words. And yeah, I'm really honored to be the first guest of your podcast. And I'm ready to rock and roll out whenever you're ready.
Excellent. I would love to hear a brief background about you. Like, I really resonate so much with your story. My parents also got divorced when I was young. So my parents got divorced when I was 9, and I was heavily bullied at school when I first came to Australia because I couldn't speak English at all. When did the bullying, was that the thing that pushed you to become who you are today?
Well, definitely that was one of the things. And of course, having some epiphanies at the later stages of my life, it actually got me to realize that, hey, I only have one life to live. So why should I allow bullying or my past to affect me and make me feel so insecure and low self-confidence and even having low self-esteem? So everything all boils down to I would say the year 1997 when I was 7 years old, right? So back then, my parents I thought were okay as a parent, right? To be able to see them smile and talk to one another. But I didn't know that my mom was actually suffering from this mental illness called schizophrenia. So what happened was there's one night when she said that she's supposed to come back home, but unfortunately, she didn't appear home at all. She didn't turn up for dinner. So we were so excited. We were looking forward to have dinner with her, and then next moment, hours passed and she didn't come back. And my dad somehow knew something was wrong, and we tried to look for her every places that she would have been to. And one thing is, we didn't manage to find her. We called her family, no one knew where she went. Her friends, no one knew where she went as well. So even when we went to her to her place, her co-workers didn't even know where she went, like literally. So I was back then in 1997, kidnapping was pretty high and pretty popular at that point of time in 1997. So somehow or other, I thought that maybe she was being kidnapped, probably. So we had to go to the police the next day, and we had to lodge a report of a missing person. And somehow or other, long story short, a month later, my dad received a letter from her. So this letter wasn't saying that, hey, I'm so sorry, I had to leave because I was having mental breakdown or whatsoever. It was a letter that scared the shit out of my dad, and that letter was actually a divorce letter. So yeah, so it was very painful for him. That was the first time I saw my dad cry, and I've not really knew what to do for him. And as a kid, all I knew was PlayStation back then, PlayStation 1, and wrestling, because I love wrestling. My dad introduced wrestling to me. And of course, some Power Rangers and whatever not that could accompany me for the rest of my childhood. But my dad actually had to actually come to the school to beg the principal to let me go off earlier, and it's not just 10 minutes, 20 minutes earlier, but it's an hour earlier. And because of that, my classmates, some of them actually tend was pretty, I think, probably jealous, or probably they were just just naughty at a point of time. So they had to actually started to bully me for that, because of that. Yeah, because of that. And of course, probably because I was small in size and I was low self-esteem, low confidence, and they could sense it. So they did something to me, in a sense. And that bullying didn't stop for a while, and even to the extent, I could remember, while we were waiting for the school bus, uh, at that point of time, there's one girl that actually said, uh, laughed at me and called me motherless for that point of time. I'm not sure how they knew about it, but probably they overheard what the teachers have said, or probably someone knew about this somehow. I'm not too sure, right? So that was a big scar for me at that point of time. But then when we move forward to a few months later, my parents actually went through the divorce, and somehow rather, it was a start of something new at that point of time. Even though my dad got the custody, which thank God for it, because if she got the custody of me, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be here speaking to you guys. I would be suicidal. I'll be mentally unwell, right? Because not trying to be judgy over here, and not trying to be very close-minded about things, but when a person is suffering from mental illness, and somehow rather who is stubborn in terms of their treatment, all the more you'll be easily stressed out by them. And you will be, I would say, not just being stressed out, you'll be frustrated, you'll be depressed as well, because they do not want to listen to your advices, and so on and so forth. But moving forward, a few months later, or even almost a year later, a few months later, my grandma, who doted on me and my dad, somehow rather had an accident. She fell at home, and then after that she passed away. And because of that double whammy, my dad actually found uh, his original true love, in a sense, which was my stepmom. So they reconciled during the point when my dad was actually having a very low period of time. And my stepmom was like an angel in disguise who came into this whole picture, and she managed to lift my dad up, and she managed to help me out in terms of my studies. She gave up her job as a uh, property agent, and then after that she decided to stay home and to look after me and to guide me in terms of my education. And because of that, my thought of all stepmothers evil, like how we saw in Cinderella, just changed. And because of her, my studies went from an DNF student to a BNA student. And I'm not trying to say that, oh, BNA is what every student have to go for, even though it looks pretty on your report card. But it is something that I am truly grateful for her. And because of her, my education, my life has changed. My lifestyle has changed because of her. And because of her, I got to be first in class for one of the years. Yeah, for one of the years. And also at the same time, I got to go to um, a secondary school that I thought would be great. And of course, over there, I got to meet new friends and everything. And life pretty much changed for that point of time. And then in 2014, as we move forward all the way to 2014, because I graduated from a diploma in nursing, so I thought that I could go anywhere I want, to wherever I want in terms of nursing. So I had to admit that that was the most foolish thing I ever thought of, but that was the most life-changing thing that happened to me, because in 2014 I joined a Japanese clinic after I got out of army, because all guys have to go through army. So after I went through army and came out, I thought I could go anywhere I want. So I went to a Japanese clinic in Singapore to work. And lo and behold, within few months, probably 3 to 4 months, I was being fired.
What?
Oh yeah, talking about the celebrity whisperer being fired beforehand. Yeah, I was being fired, and to be honest, I deserved to be fired at that point of time, because I couldn't concentrate in my work,
Right.
and I had really bad relationship with my ex-girlfriend, who was pretty toxic at the point of time, and I can't blame her 100% also, because I was pretty much young and foolish and naive as well at that point of time. So I kind of like blame myself for that. But then I after a while, I told myself that, hey, within the next 5 years, I'm going to be way more successful than who I was, and that was the mindset that I had. So I decided to actually go on into my personal development journey. So I went for success resources
Yeah.
events like National Achievers Congress, for example, or
Yeah.
even Money Mind Intensive, right? And even going to the basics like reading books, like what you see over at the back, and also at the same time watching YouTube videos. And YouTube videos at the point of time, what I was watching was like Red Frost motivation. I was watching GaryVee. I was watching Grant Cardone,
Yeah.
even Addicted to Success, if you have heard of Joel Brown. Yeah. So I was like hooked onto this, and even Tai Lopez, even though a lot of people say he's a con artist in a sense, right? In terms of advertising, marketing, and all. But really, what who inspired me, and what inspired me was actually Tai Lopez, because
Wow,
he was
really?
always, yeah, surprisingly, even though he was like, hey, in my garage, and then he was like
Yeah.
looking at
All
the
these cars.
books, yeah, hey, look at this Lamborghinis. But even though we knew, eventually I got to know that it's all rented. Most of them are rented, and
Yeah.
it's not his. So I was like, okay, the mansion was not his, the everything was not his. It's just like branding sake. He knew how to market himself, and cool enough. I was like, at that point of time, I was still very naive, and I thought, hey, the more books you read, you're gonna like what Jim Rohn always said,
Yeah.
self-education is gonna bring you the fortune, in a sense.
Yes.
So I was like, hey, let's do that, right? And it, in fact, it did give me some fortune, because I managed to actually find a mentor of mine, and he in fact brought me to secondary schools to speak. And I thought, wow, the life of being a speaker, that was what I always thought I would want to be, right? But it wasn't enough, like legit, it wasn't enough. The amount that I was being paid was very little at that point of time. And I was thinking to myself, man, you are motivating people, and then this guy, this mentor is is earning like 7 to 15 times more than what you're earning, and you are like doing your working your ass off for him, and even though it's a great experience, I thought to myself, hey, I need to sustain, I need some sustainable income for my family as well, because
Yeah.
I'm gonna look after three parents, my dad, my mom, and my stepmom in the future, right? Gonna I'm not gonna lie, is that life is gonna be tough, because I'm the only child.
Right.
So I was like, okay, cool. Then I went back to join this institution, which is a mental institution, or they call it an asylum, right? So I went to join an asylum as a nurse, and I'm really grateful that all these years I've learned a lot, and I was I was given a lot of opportunities in that institution itself. Uh, Once I joined this institution, within next 4 months, I was given the opportunity to be featured on newspaper because of my unique story. And of course, because of that, I was being featured on, uh, I would say, certain stages where I got to be invited as a special speaker, guest speaker, and I got to share about my life story. And it wasn't just one off. It was continuously from 2014 all the way until even to today. I'm still being featured on different platforms, and even like your platform as well, which I'm really grateful for. So all in all, I've been really grateful that I went through all these processes and get to learn a lot of things along the way. And even though I'm still a psychiatric nurse for now, and I'm still doing my side hustle and still doing the podcast that we mentioned earlier, the Raygacy Show. So I've been working my ass off
Yeah.
on the hustle in a sense. But of course, every hustler has a dream. Every hustler has their own passion. So I'm really passionate towards mental health and also networking as well, in particular, which we will talk a lot about all these things later on as well.
Yeah, let's talk about the Raygacy Show, which is there to aspire to inspire. And
Yep.
you have been able to connect with these incredible people, people like GaryVee and Grant Cardone. Like, how did you manage to make those connections? Because that's not something that everyone can do. Like, you've got you've got something special going on there. How did you do that?
Well, I believe it's because of my connections in a sense, and of course, I was a daredevil in a sense, in terms of like Uncle G, Grant Cardone.
Yeah.
I managed to just message him on LinkedIn, and
Oh.
he just said yes to having me on, interviewing him in his suite in Marina Bay Sands, Singapore. So I got to meet, not just got to meet Uncle G himself, I got to meet his right hand man, Jared Glenn. I got to meet his camera guy, Johnny the camera guy. I got to meet his whole family, even Alina Cardone, Sabrina, the daughters, and even Alina's best friend. Even to today, we are still in connections. We are still connecting with one another on IG. We are still following each other's IG, and yeah, it's simply just by typing some messages out to Uncle G, and boom, boom, you get it. But of course, for GaryVee was a different fit, because that that particular year in 2017, when he came for Brand Minds Asia, I got to meet him in person, and I got to speak with him, and I got to ask him a question. So somehow rather, um, we took a photo, we took selfies together at a point of time in Brand Minds Asia, and then after that, that's it. And I did think of having him on my podcast, but I wasn't sure when, until when he's back in 2018 in Singapore for National Achievers Congress by Success Resources. So I thought to myself, hey, it would be cool if I got to meet Gary again. And I would love to have him on a podcast. That was at the back of my head, but I do not know how. Probably I got to sneak in at the backstage and things like that. Well, but thankfully it didn't happen that way, right? So what happened was, there's this guy who is part of this group called Vayner Nation Squad, which was created by him himself. So and a few other people, some OGs. So he is like one of the guy that actually will bring Gary around when he's in Singapore. And there's this lady called Reza, who's also one of the, I would say, the assistant for Gary while he's here. She will be planning the things and all. So somehow or rather, I didn't know that Gary is gonna host um, I would say, a business meetup with influencers and business owners in Singapore, until this guy called uh, Gerard Nicholas, right? Nicholas Gerard actually messaged me on Facebook. Like he was just saying to me, "Hey, how's everything going? Hey, I've been noticing about your this podcast and just want to check will be available on this date, which are supposed to be in the National Achievers Congress event." And one thing is, Nicholas is not connected with Success Resources, so I didn't pay. I didn't pay the. I paid the ticket to join this event, but I didn't pay to actually get a podcast interview or business meeting with Gary. Okay. So what happened was Nicholas actually told me that, hey, I've been watching you and I know that you are pretty consistent. So I've actually mentioned your name dropped you to Gary and his team. So he didn't mean it this way, but I roughly got the idea that he did it in a sense. So he would like me to go meet Gary for an interview or for a business meetup at his hotel lobby, and I immediately said yes. I was like,
Of
oh wow,
course.
I didn't expect this, right? To today, I couldn't believe that I actually had this I would say this opportunity to be able to speak with Gary, because so many podcasters, so many YouTubers, so many even like radio celebrities or whatsoever not, they would love to be with Gary because they know that it will amplify their brand, and not just amplify the brand, but on a wider perspective, it will be cool to be able to associate yourself with someone like GaryVee, or associate yourself with Grant Cardone, Uncle G, right? And many
Yeah.
others, right? So I'm truly blessed to have all this, I would say, all this kind of like connections, and also at the same time all these experiences, and managed to interview Gary. At first, I was supposedly given 30 minutes to interview him, but unfortunately, some influencer took up a lot of time asking him a lot of questions during the business meetup. And because of that, it got shortened to 5. But that 5 minutes were gold. It was diamond. Why? Because it was that podcast episode was also repurposed by D-Rock. So D-Rock actually was filming over there, which is aka his camera guy, one
Yeah.
of his camera guy. So he was there filming, and we were actually talking about the, the questions, and we were talking and all, and he was filming, and then after that, there's one day where I got to see on his IG, and I was like, hey, what the hell? It was on his IG, and then next moment it was on DailyVee, and I was like, hey, wow,
Nice.
I'm appearing on DailyVee for about 5 times already. So I was like, wow, so grateful, right?
Yeah.
So it meant it was intense. Like I've never thought that this would happen. And then in 2019, I got to meet him again, but this time around, I did sneak behind, sneak behind to the backstage to actually meet him. And thankfully, at that point of time, I started to build some following, and I have some followers and the backstage who actually paid for like what Emerald or Ruby's passes, or some of them were even given because one of them, two of them were my past guests on my podcast, and also at the same time they knew I really love Gary, and probably Gary would want to see me in a sense when he's back in Singapore. So
Yes.
somehow or other, I got to sneak in, and they passed me the pass and say, "Hey, just go for it." Yeah, when
Love
I
it.
went up the stage, and when Gary saw me, he was like, oh my God, he was like touched to see me again. And it's like, hey man, and we were talking on
Yeah.
we hugged it out, and we were talking on the stage, and prior to this, while Gary was actually speaking on stage, D-Rock actually happened to see me, and he gave me a wink, and I roughly guessed that probably he remembered me. And to today we are still Facebook friends, which I'm really grateful for. And man, that was really great experience. Like you never know how a connection can actually be there to help you, to guide you, and even to allow you to meet your idol, for example, or
Yeah.
the person that you truly admire, right? So it's like a, a, a whole new experience, I would say. And it's really fascinating. It's really fantastic when you think back and you realize, hey, wow, this is something that you've done, and this is like a legacy for me to leave behind when I leave this world, in a sense. And
100%.
yeah, it's I would say a lot of people's dream to actually talk to these people. And you know what? The person who inspired me to go for, to become a podcaster, to interview all these people, was actually Joe Brown and Louis House.
Mm.
Because in 2014 I was watching their videos as well. I got to watch Addicted to Success, and I was thinking, wow, Joe Joe just got a call with Gary on the phone, and and
Yeah.
and and it's so amazing, right? And when I saw Lewis House on Tony Robbins' private jet interviewing
Yeah.
him at that point of time, I was like, what the hell? What did this newbies got to do
Yeah.
to actually do all this kind of stuff, right? And I was thinking and visualizing myself like, hey, if these guys can do it, what about me? It will be awesome, right? And
Totally.
slowly and surely, I got to interview these people, amazing people, and even Steve Seams, Paul Gatter, and many other people that's along the way that's coming in, and I got the opportunity from my institution, my hospital, to actually act in local drama as well, and I became friends with one or two of the local artists in Singapore, and one of them is following me on IG as well. We follow each other, and we still speak and time to time. That's why, probably because of this, uh, I was being dubbed as the celebrity whisperer, like, because celebrities or high net worth people would love to be with me because I make them feel comfortable. I don't like, have, I do not have high ego to actually say that, hey, I'm that damn good, you should be my friend, or I do not have that low self-esteem to beg people for attention and beg for them to follow me, or to be friends with me. I do
Yeah.
not do that, right? So probably because of that, they felt that, hey, it's fine. We do not have to be bothered by Rayson. He's not going to be our competition anyway, in a sense, right? And truth be told, I've been I would say, given the opportunity by them to interview their friends, or even their clients, for example. Like, for example, Steve Seams introduced some people to me, and then after that they introduced some friends to me, and even some PR companies. I'm not sure how they got to know about my podcast. They just emailed me and say, hey, I would like to have this so and so to be on your podcast. I was like, oh wow, okay. And they are not based in Singapore. These people, these PR companies, are based in US, and I wasn't sure how they actually got to know about my podcast, and until they introduce like influencers and celebrities onto my podcast. I was like, oh wow, man. I was like in 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 dreamland. Like, wow, I didn't expect this to happen, and it wasn't overnight, to be honest.
Yeah.
This podcast actually started in the year 2017, and then to today we are still interviewing people, even though for like this good 5 years, people could have gotten like 1,000 episodes, and I'm only at 122. Was because I have some hiatus along the way, due to personal commitments and some some setbacks along the way. But of course, I'm still doing this podcast is because my followers and some connections were still telling me, hey, don't stop this podcast. keep going. And when I felt like giving up, the people just came in and say, hey, I have this guest that I want to be on a podcast, or they just tell me that, hey, I want to be on your podcast. I'm saying, hey, what the, I didn't expect this, right? And the reason why I said I wanted to give up was because I thought that I need to have millions of subscribers, millions of downloads, and whatsoever to make it to make it a podcast that's ultra successful. But I realized that, hey, it's not so much about numbers game, but it's about the people that's inside this podcast that has been adding value to the mass audience that I have so far. And of course, it's also the value that I'm bringing to the world that is, I would say, different from other podcasts as well. So that's why I told myself, hey, since I started this, why should I end this so quickly, right? I should
Yeah,
just
please don't, please
continue.
don't. Otherwise, I wouldn't have heard about you.
Yeah, I know, right? If I stopped, I believe I wouldn't be on your podcast. I wouldn't be on so many other people's podcasts as well, and I wouldn't be able to interview many great entrepreneurs from around the world, and I wouldn't be even be able to be connected with you and the other entrepreneurs that's out there who I've not really heard of or who I've not met as well. So I'm really
I
sure
love
that I will not give up on this.
how humble you are.
Oh,
Like,
thank you.
I think that's what really drew me to you. Like when I watch your footages, when I listen to your podcast, even when I reach out to you, it's like I would be a nobody to you, but you just like spoke right back to me. And and then when I asked you, I'm like, oh, and I actually told you, I'm like, oh, you're actually inspiring me to do my own podcast. I'm like, when I do that, will you be my first guest? And you instantly, you said, yeah, for sure. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy. So like, well, I just feel very privileged. So thank you for that. And
welcome.
I think there's the part of you that's like really got the big heart. It's definitely, that's what draws you to the audience. And when I think about, hey, how did you excel in this part so much, like as an entrepreneur and a connector, do you feel like, yeah, it is just being that raw, authentic self that enabled that and the consistency?
Definitely. It's always about the mindset. And of course, it's always about how you actually bring yourself out to the table. Like your branding has to be good. You can't be someone that took eyes who murder people and you tell people, hey, I want to interview you after murdering someone. No, that will never happen, right? People will be afraid. They will ask the security guard to get you out of their sight, in a sense, right? But if, let's say, you are there to want to interview probably Gary or whoever, right? And they have slots for themselves to be interviewed, then by all means go and ask, because the power is always in the person who asks. The power is always there by asking, in sense. And if you don't ask, you will never get the answers. You start to doubt. You start to think a lot, and by thinking a lot, it will not give you a lot of great stuff, right? By thinking, unless if you are thinking positively, then it's a different stuff. But if you are thinking like, oh man, I suck, that's why Gary don't want to be on my podcast. Oh, because he has more time for other people who are more famous than me. No, bullshit, man. I was just a rising star at that point of time in 2018, and people started to get to know me because they were thinking like, hey, this guy is crazy. Like, how the hell was he able to interview GaryVee? How was he able to interview Cardone? Does he have some special connections with success resources? Answer: no, don't have. I don't even talk to Richard Tan from Success Resources. I've not interviewed him at all, but I interviewed one of his partner, which is Dr. Patrick Liu, who was really inspiring at that point in time. I thought that, hey, why not get him? And yeah, people was, and even talking about Dr. Patrick Liu, he was the one who messaged me like, hey, when are you going to interview me? I was like, I had a good laugh on that. We had a good convo. And to today, he still remembers me when I went for events and he was speaking. And it was some, I would say, networking event. And I got to he happened to be the speaker. And I was there to actually just listen and network with business partners or clients and all this other stuff. And when he saw me, he said, hey, wow, he still raised his hand. He was very humble. He was like, hey, and he was still like waving at me and all. And we were still chatting, and he was like, hey, good job, all the best, and all this other stuff to me. I was like, hey, wow, I thought he would have forgotten me, but he hasn't. And we are still Facebook friends, and he still watches my stuff once in a while, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I would say that, it's always about the mindset that you have about yourself, because self-awareness is key. Like, you got to be aware, not just about your strengths, about your weaknesses and all, but aware about the other party. Like, you got to be empathetic towards the other person, be it their high net worth person, their middle class person, or even a low class person per se, right? For some people who calls janitors and all the other knots, blue collar workers, right? I truly believe that if we are able to treat low profile or people who are of a lower status as much as how you treat those people of a higher status, you win both worlds.
Yeah.
You win in a sense, because people will find you not just humble, not just nice, but they will also find that you are somebody that they can entrust themselves with to actually speak, to actually be vulnerable to, for example, and things like that. So I truly believe that once you have the mindset of how to network with people, then all the more people would want to be associated with you. They want to be connected with you in a sense. And if you are of value to them, all the more they want to be able to collaborate with you, for example. And that's what I've done with some of my podcasts. I would say some of my podcast guests, I managed to collaborate with them, host some events together, and get to not just host events, but also have some trainings and all this other stuff together. And we even co-author books together. And one of them was this book called The Younger Self Letters.
The Younger Self Letters. Yeah,
Yeah.
tell us about that book, because you've gone through this massive journey. What would you say is like the key message in that book? If you were to wrap it up, what would you have for our listeners?
Well, definitely, like, for The Young Self Letters, this was like written by 30 authors. And of course, the biggest message for everyone is to actually, I would say, to tell yourself, if you have a dream, go for it. If you have a dream,
love it.
Don't just go for it, but protect it. Your parents going to say no to your dream. Your grandparents were going to say no. Your granny, your auntie, your best friend, or probably even your teachers, right? Or even your, I would say, superiors in your workplace will say, nah, that's not going to happen, right? You're not going to do this. You're not going to be an entrepreneur. How are you going to survive? You're gonna eat porridge every day, right? You're gonna eat oatmeal every day. Well, to be honest, yes, that part, probably when you're in your tough time. But what about when you're in your successful time? You're gonna be definitely gonna have so many followers that loves you, right? You're gonna have a lot of amazing opportunities as well. That's what I would say many entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, went from zero to hero, right?
Yeah.
And of course, one thing is for sure is that you only have one life to live as you. No one can live as Combs, no one can live as Ray, no one can live as GaryVee or whosoever. Only you can live as yourself. Your parents can't dictate who you're going to be unless if your whole family is lawyer and doctor. Probably you want to follow their footsteps by all means. But
Yes.
if you have a dream of becoming an NBA player, for example, or if you have a dream of becoming an entrepreneur, then go ahead, take that risk and see where this risk will bring you to. It might bring you to failure, yes, probably. Like legit, like
But you will learn from it.
yeah, like out of the 1 million or how many millions of entrepreneurs that we have around the world in every state and every corner in the whole world, definitely 50 to 80% failed, unfortunately. But there are not many stories about them bouncing back up because they thought that, hey, once I fail means I fail, or oh, I hit bankruptcy, I'm gonna fail for life, and that's the statement for themselves. But
Yes.
if you are gonna see it in another perspective, like, oh, so what if my wife left? What if my parents die or whatever, right? At that period of time, after I failed my business, it's not gonna define who I am, but it's gonna be something that craft me. It's like I am gonna build my own Goliath. I'm gonna create my own Goliath. I'm gonna create my own sculpture of Rayson. I'm gonna build my own best self version sculpture in a sense. I might have some weaknesses. I might have some, I would say, times where I actually failed in certain things, but it doesn't mean that I'm a loser. No, it doesn't. It just means that I'm just one or two or few ideas or steps before I reach my goal, before I reach that best self, for example. It's all in the mind, like how we see it. The reason why so many that actually failed and come back up again is because of their mindset and because of their connections, because of the people that surrounds them that was pretty supportive of what they have been doing, and also at the same time they're pretty supportive of their of the idea of them bouncing back up and rising up like a phoenix again. So it's all about, in life, it's not so much about what we know, it's more on who we know that can help us.
Yeah.
Because in life, if you kept thinking about, oh, I need this skill set to be successful, oh, look at this entrepreneur, he has this skill set, that skill set, but one thing that allows you to have this skill set is first and foremost that mindset. Because if you do not have that mindset, you will not be hardworking enough to go and learn. You won't be curious enough to go and learn this skill set, for example. And you need to know what are the high income skills that can help you to elevate your business, your brand, and things like that, right? This is what I even though a lot of people like CoffeeZilla actually mentioned like this guy Dan Locke is a scam, but even though I'm not too sure 100% how true
When I
is
think
that.
of him, I just think of him shooting money out.
Yeah, shooting money out, and with his Iron Man and with his wife, right? His Iron Man figurines and his wife and all. But all in all, in all due respect, I love what he shared in terms of high income skills.
Yeah.
Because certain things that he said is true and still true to today. Like legit. It's not like he has to make things up and all just to make it so fluffy and brand himself. It's the same goes with Thai. These online gurus have their own belief system, their own way of saying things that is definitely true. Probably they paraphrase certain things that other people have said it, but they make it sound more simpler for general public and things like that. So that's why I truly believe that, hey, even though you have the skill sets, right, but you also need to have the mindset. So all in all, mindset plus skill set plus also your passion to it will help you to actually excel. But plus, you need to plus one more thing, and that is your connections. Then all the
Yes.
more it will be way more powerful. That's why you get to see successful entrepreneurs, millionaires, billionaires. They have a small group of people that they have faith in, or even they have large followers, right? Large group of followers, but their friends is pretty small. Their group is pretty small. You can see that, oh, their team might be 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, but the mastermind is not so much, not so many.
Yeah.
It's just probably 10 to or even lesser. So and because of that, I truly want to implore you guys to go and reach out to actually go and find your mentors, to go and find your coaches, to find the people that you can trust, be it in the personal development space, business or investment or whatever that you are really niche in and what you really enjoy doing. Go and find this group of people that can help you out. And who knows, they are the ones who can actually help to elevate you. They are the ones who can help to enhance your skill set, for example. Right? So yeah, this is something that I truly believe in.
Thank you so much, Rayson. I really appreciated your time in terms of being so raw, so open, sharing so much insight. I think the key takeaway is you only get one life. Go live it. If you have a dream, go for it. And then connect with people. Build your mastermind, and learn from the people that's done it.
Yep. If you want to go from A to B, you need to know those people who are already at point B, and you got to learn from them, and not people who are at point A or point Z or whatever, because they're not at the place where you are at that you want to be at, right? They're probably at the place that you are at, or they are the place that you never thought that you want to be there, right? Yeah, so
that's a great point, because people want something and they ask the people that don't have it, right? And they only slay that dream. But it's like, for sure, you got to ask the people that's at point B that's done it already, get close to them, and then you've got clarity. Like, people get stuck because they don't know what the steps, but why would you don't even need to figure it out if you've got someone that's done it before.
If you are able to get people who has done it before, then you're going to be reaching your goal at a shorter time, and you don't have to go through those bumps and whatnot. You might have to go through certain bumps, but you don't have to go through every bump that this person has went through.
Awesome. If people resonated with you and they want to know more, where would they find you?
They can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. So Facebook and LinkedIn will be Rayson Choo, Rayson space CHOO, or they can find me at Instagram at Raygacy, RAYGACY. And if they are really curious about this podcast, they can go on to Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and go and stream it. It's called the Raygacy Show, and I'm pretty sure you're gonna love it, and you're gonna enjoy the raw authenticity from my guests, because we do not do like video recording and then after that we pause and say, hey, you said the wrong stuff or whatsoever. No, we do it raw. So that's why I went for Facebook and LinkedIn Live before we convert them to the audio, like Spotify, iTunes, and Google Podcasts.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, you're most welcome.
Excel in life, live your purpose, be free.